Candace Stewart, and I'm your hostess and my podcast, Trade Secrets. And today I have Jeff Ellis. What?
What? Jeff Ellis Worldwide.
Jeff Ellis Worldwide.
Get the name correct.
We're gonna get into what Jeff is doing currently, but we're gonna start my podcast like I start all of them, which is I ask one main question. It's unscripted, and it's just a conversation. It's sort of to show people that there's no one way to have your great, your favorite job, to end up with your dream job. And that question is, where were you born? Do you know?
Yeah. I was actually born in Mesa, Arizona.
And you're not Mormon?
No, but it wasn't a Mormon town back then.
Is it now, though?
It is now, yeah. Allegedly, I mean.
I don't know.
I don't know.
I'm cool with the LDS.
Yeah, no, yeah, sure.
I'll give it all peoples.
Yeah.
So, Mesa, Arizona. You don't have to say the year, but you can if you want.
1984.
What? Best year ever. There's a book about it.
George Orwell. I just actually read that for the first time like 2 years ago.
Dude, it's quite concerning. That and Animal Farm.
Yeah.
And Silent Spring.
I still need to see Animal Farm. Yeah.
Oh, it's great.
You got to see it.
Silent Spring, too. Book that I was just talking about, which we'll talk about later, because that's not what this podcast is about. This podcast is about Jeff, okay? And Jeff's origin story. All right, so origin story, which, by the way, is your mom. Is your origin story. Anyway, so mom and dad, what did they do?
My dad was he was an options trader in the 80s.
Like
buy, sell,
stock?
high, low, sell, buy, high.
Stock trader?
Yeah.
Nice.
But it was options, so that's like a type of derivative.
Is that
what
better?
they call it. What it was is I think essentially in the 80s, the markets were so inefficient. Oh. Like now there's computers that are so involved in everything.
Computers.
But the markets were much less efficient back in the day.
Oh.
So there were basically ways to kind of hornswoggle the whole situation. And I think
your shirt matches your eyes. Your eyes are so beautiful in blue. Sorry, I digress.
Yeah.
So option trader. So
yeah,
dad,
but he was well on the way to making millions and millions, and then he kind of just decided to move to Arizona and start a family, and he left all that behind. And he was just he was one of the first people. You know how people nowadays will have their computers and they'll trade stocks online constantly and have all those computer screens and stuff?
Yep.
Well, he was doing that in the 80s with a giant satellite dish.
Oh my God, how
And then
crazy.
he'd have to call someone that was doing, the hand signals and
move
stuff.
the dish.
Yeah, you know those movies where, a giant, and it was, I actually used to play on it as a little kid.
Is
I would
this
climb
part of
on
the
it and
three
stuff.
body problem? No, anyway, go ahead.
So you know the people that have are on the stock trading floor and they have all the hand signals and they're screaming and stuff?
Oh, yeah.
So he used to do that, but he would call his partner and execute trades. But now you can just do it from your phone. But so he was like a day trader.
Oh, okay.
So we lived in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of nowhere, and there was no internet, so it was satellite dish and phone.
Nice. Well, I think we should all go back to pre-internet personally. Yeah. I think the world would be a better place.
It was nice, right? I'm lucky I didn't have social media until I was in, social media came out when I was a freshman in college is when the Facebook came out, yeah. And I forgot about my mom. My mom was an interior.
Yeah, I was going to ask what your mom did.
So when I was young, my mom was a stay-at-home mom, and then when I got older, she was doing interior design work and stuff like that. Yeah,
classy.
she was cool. She would
She is cool.
She would we would have the
she
art
still
class
is.
at
She
school.
Is cool still.
Yeah, still, yeah. But she would be the art. She would help out at school, so she'd be the art teacher and stuff like that.
Oh, fun.
Yeah.
Although it can be a drag when your mom's at your school.
Right.
But
But when you're really young, you don't see it that
you
way.
don't care.
Yeah,
She's
when you get
cool.
older, then it
she's
becomes
a cool
drag.
mom.
Yeah.
Siblings?
I have a brother that works at Microsoft.
What?
Yeah.
How did I not know this?
You don't even know my brother really at all, I don't think.
That's crazy.
Yeah, my brother works at Microsoft. He's super smart. So while I was playing computer games growing up, he was programming.
Were you playing an Atari?
No, I was playing PC games, but
okay.
Atari was slightly before my time.
Okay,
just
well,
slightly.
see, this is me dating myself.
Yeah, but I'd be playing Frogger, and he would be trying to figure out how QBasic worked and be making little games.
People have wasted whole entire lifetimes on Tetris.
Yeah. Did you hear that little kid just finally maxed out Tetris and beat it and got to the kill screen?
Oh my God.
Yeah, Tetris. I think I'm saying that Tetris was finally beaten. Eventually, you can beat it to where it kills itself, it crashes out. And some kid just did that.
I hope he doesn't ever listen to this, but my ex-husband used to smoke pot and play Tetris all the time, and it was sort of the beginning of the end.
That'll do it. Yeah.
At least of that relationship.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I like to talk about is kind of like what first sparked your interest in music? Like, did you play in like the high school band or did you play an instrument?
Yeah. Well, I had a crazy rock and roll uncle. I still do. I keep past tensing my family.
It's all right.
He was a big influence on me and bought me my first guitar when I was 13.
Dude, I need to meet your cool uncle.
Oh, you would love Uncle Chuck. You would love Uncle Chuck.
Uncle C,
Uncle
man.
Chuck is kind of like same hair as you. Like, yeah.
Uncle C.
Yeah, we'll have to get him
Separated
out
at birth
here.
from Uncle C.
Yeah, Uncle Chuck. Before that, I was playing trumpet in grade school.
What is up with everyone playing horns? Did they just have like horns?
I think
excess of horns?
saxophone was too expensive, so you play trumpet if you
Did
can't
they
afford
just,
the sax.
Keith, you can chime in, horn boy, on this. We can hear
Yeah.
your audio. Why do they just have horns and they're like, oh, here, you're a little kid, take this horn?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't even know how I got into school band. Do they have school band anymore in grade school?
I think they do.
Yeah.
I think they do. Keith, our trusty Steed, who records the podcast,
Yeah.
has a master's in trombone, and I always have to give him his propers.
You got the bone
there.
lips.
Yeah, he's got that lung power.
Yeah.
So that makes sense, though, that you first get introduced to music in school.
Yeah.
Any other instruments?
Okay, so trumpet and then guitar.
Okay, right, Uncle Chuck.
I went to like a really cool charter school that was like super.
Because you were a smart kid.
No, charter school in Arizona is basically like the same as a public school, or what is it? It's like a private school that anybody can get into, but it's funded by the state. It's really confusing. I don't even quite
it's
understand.
similar in California. I don't understand.
Yeah, I don't know, but it was anybody could get in, so it wasn't because I was smart. I am smart,
You're
but
real
that's
smart.
not why I got into the charter school. It would be funny. It would be a bunch of smart
Was it
kids.
maybe just in your district by your house?
I was in no school district because I lived. That was another thing too. When I grew up, there was no district, so I got to choose where I could go to school because it
What?
wasn't like an incorporated land. Because I was like way
Awesome.
out in the desert. Yeah.
With the Indians? Did you live with the Indians?
It wasn't like on a reservation or anything. It was just like I don't even know. Some land
Like
just
what?
like is not a town. Right now it's Scottsdale. So Scottsdale.
What's the little part? What's it called?
What is what?
It's part of Scottsdale, but what was your neighborhood called?
It didn't have a name at all. But I went to school in Cave Creek, which is like north.
Cave
Yeah.
Creek, got it.
Yeah, so I just lived in desert that was unincorporated. So that was cool. Like I got to play. I didn't really have neighbors too close, so I just play out in the desert.
Dude, how fun.
Yeah, it
Was
was
like
cool.
scorpions and shit?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah. And,
Snakes?
snakes and all
What?
that stuff. Yeah. I don't know why I'm alive still, but yeah.
Dude, I got bit by a water moccasin when I was water skiing, and
Don't
I
you
got
die
bit by
from
a
that?
scorpion.
Isn't that a really bad one?
It bit me in the hip, and I was little, and I grabbed it and threw it before it could.
It didn't envenomate you?
Yeah, it didn't get
Envenomate?
me.
Is that the word? Envenomate?
I'm making it. I'm creating that word.
Whenever
It's
you're
not.
on a podcast or on film, words that normally are super easy and sound normal, like envenomate or whatever, completely lose.
Dude, we'll have to find out what the word. Get at the source and find out what the word. I think poison.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't get poisoned.
Okay.
But but I've been bit by tons of stuff. So, but yeah, scorpions, right?
Yeah.
Did you play? Now your brother's a little brother.
Older.
Do you get along great?
No.
Wow.
We do now though, but yeah,
Smart
we fight
and
a
we
lot.
love him. What's
we
his
fight a
name?
lot. Matt.
We love Matt.
Yeah.
We love Uncle
would
Chuck.
get we would
we
get
love
along.
Mom. We love Dad.
Yeah, we would get along fine, but we'd fight a lot. But I think that's
brothers.
normal, right? Yeah, that's normal.
It's brothers.
Yeah.
Did he play an instrument?
Yeah, he played drums.
What?
Yeah, he played
You've
drums.
been the Ellis brothers.
You know, my brother to this day, I
The
think he
Ellis
loves.
Trio.
I think my brother loves music more than I do. He goes to way more shows. He's like, you know what I mean? I think he.
I haven't really talked about what Jeff does. Jeff Ellis Worldwide. He's one of the most successful young mixers in the world today. And I can't really give away too much about it, but there is an online course that will be coming out.
Yeah, you can give everything away about it. Yeah, it's coming
called-
out. It's
called
awesome.
Mixer Brain, and it's
Mixer
fucking
Brain.
rad. And we're going to give it all of our props. And
It's going to change
if
the
you're
world.
watching this podcast, it's not going to come out for a couple months, and Mixer Brain will probably be out by then. If it's not, I'm just saying.
Yeah, it'll be out by the time
It's
this
worth
comes out.
it.
Yeah.
Now we're going to get to the part how Jeff ended up here, but we got to get in between. So, trumpet, band, guitar, Uncle Chuck. See, Jeff and I, this is how we communicate. Like,
Yeah.
this might only be a 30-minute podcast because Jeff and I are quick. Okay?
Efficiency.
I don't know. We're efficient. You know what I'm saying? We get to the point.
You and I don't even have to talk. Have you realized that? We don't even have to talk. We don't need to catch up. You know
love
what I mean?
so
It's
much.
fine.
Dude,
Yeah.
I could not talk to you for a fucking
It doesn't
decade.
matter. It'd be fine.
But yeah. Not that I don't want to talk to you for a decade.
Yeah.
You're awesome.
But we don't need to.
We're
It'll be
fine.
fine.
So you're growing up. That's kind of rad that you did to grow up in sort of a wide open space.
Yeah.
And you probably weren't monitored.
We had a good, like, compared to kids nowadays,
Yeah.
there were, it's like.
They call
yeah.
it helicoptering. Why don't they just call it videotaping? Why don't they just call it stalking?
Yeah.
When your parents are like, I can see what you're doing right now.
Yeah,
It's kinda
especially
creeper.
schools were different. Like my charter school, we had a mountain biking class.
Ooh.
You could just like leave campus and go hiking. Like, I remember we'd be on the basketball court building bike ramps to like launch
Yes.
off of in
Yes.
recess time. Like you can't even do close to that.
Is there any
nowadays.
school that has like skateboarding class?
No, because everybody gets sued into
Right,
oblivion.
true.
So everybody comes out like weak now because like.
You know, we had golf in my high school, which was a big thing, and I lived near the municipal golf course. My high school wasn't; it was a few miles away. But we also had surfing became a thing. We played lacrosse though. Lacrosse is fucking hard.
Yeah.
I'm
Lacrosse is an East Coast sport that means nothing to me.
It's hard, and
Yeah.
if you get hit by a lacrosse ball, it hurts.
It's not great.
It's like a baseball.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. It's about you.
Have you told him about how you got launched out of a car?
But again, it's
Your
not about
stories are a lot better than mine.
I don't think that's true.
I've been launched out of nothing.
Dude, you're good. Well, I mean, dude, that's a perfect scene just came to mind for Mixer Brain that you
Okay.
should do, which
Okay.
is a launch scene to be discussed
Okay,
later.
cool.
Okay,
Okay,
we
cool.
cannot give away the inside information on Mixer Brain.
Have you done an episode of Where Are You Born and then made it about you?
No, Keith and Nate will tell you that I constantly interrupt and sort of get in my own story.
Yeah.
But I've been on other podcasts. I was on Matt Boudreaux's
There
podcast.
should be an episode of your podcast where it's just about you because you have the best stories, right?
I don't know if that's
Yeah.
thank you, Nate. I don't know
Yeah.
if that's true, but I would if I'm on that, then you're going to be the interviewer.
I would do that, yeah.
You'd be awesome. You could talk to me. So you've got this interest in music. We know you're smart. You're doing well in school. You're in an unincorporated district.
Was I doing
out
well
in the
in school?
desert. You're out in the desert with scorpions. You're walking around playing your trumpet on your mountain bike because that's a thing.
Yeah.
And I never ask anybody this, but maybe I should. Like, girlfriends in junior high?
I had a girlfriend named Michelle.
I never asked anyone that before.
Well, I don't know. When I was young, having a girlfriend in my
Was
day and
uncool?
age was just like, no, it was just like you talk on the phone and stuff when you're really young, you know? And I know, right? It's not like it is nowadays when you're 13.
And you send pictures?
No pictures. You couldn't
Bad
send. There
pictures?
were no there's no digital cameras or
Don't
anything.
send bad pictures.
No, you talk on the phone and send notes and stuff.
This is
yeah.
going to be one of my favorite episodes.
I didn't have my first serious girlfriend until I was in college.
Dude, and you're so handsome.
I was a weird kid. I grew up in the middle of nowhere.
Do
it's
I
like not a lot of
know your
options.
serious girlfriend?
Not my first one.
Oh, okay.
You knew Meg.
I did Meg.
Yeah.
Have you ever told Meg to watch The Meg?
I probably did 100%. 100%. I have a memory of
Best
sending
movie ever.
that.
And
yeah.
Meg too.
Yeah. There's a Meg too.
There is.
Meg is like a megalodon or something.
Meg is a megalodon. It's
Yeah.
a giant shark that was trapped in the under ocean, separate ocean beneath the frozen ocean floor.
Do you like Michael Crichton?
I do like Michael
Me too.
Crichton. Yeah.
Ooh, I just listened to The
Yeah.
Sphere on Book on Tape.
Really?
Audible. The
Oh, I
Sphere.
love Audible. Dude, I listen to books
An
all the time.
underwater drama like The Meg.
I alternate between like reading stuff like Silent Spring, which scares me and depresses me and is nonfiction, and I realize that there's no hope against the DDT that's in my tissues, and like sort of softcore erotica. I read a lot of trash.
Why stop at soft?
Well, I don't. I just kind of go to the romance.
Okay.
I'm a romantic.
That's
somewhere in there. Plus,
That's
it's easy to
cute.
listen to. I mean, I can talk about anything on my podcast. It's my podcast, and people are going to judge me anyway. So, I kind of, I like to read like bang. I like to listen to bang scenes while I'm driving.
while you're driving,
Yeah,
like
it's
in the
kinda
morning, or is that
yeah,
like an evening
people are getting
drive?
down, and I'm driving.
That's a lot for like
I
a
keep
9 a.m. walk.
Going off rails here now. We need to focus on you. I'm losing my shit. You're so fun. I love you. Okay, so trumpet, guitar, mountain biking. Was it an interest of yours?
I mean, it was, but I mean, I was really into. I grew up on the internet because it was too damn hot to do anything outside most of the year. So
Super hot.
I played games like EverQuest and Ultima Online,
I
and
don't even know what that is. What's EverQuest?
it was like the first versions of like games you could play online
Where you
and
could
meet
be
other people.
in-
Yeah, you meet other people online.
Okay, Keith
with like
did
dial-up
like
modems and stuff.
Keith did like Dungeons and Dragons. Is it?
Yeah, that's cool too. I want to get into that. I never
don't
never
think
got
you
into
should,
it.
I don't think children should be talking to people in other countries and their parents don't know who they are.
Well, back
What
in
if it's like a 60-year-old man and he's a perv?
Yeah, I think the infrastructure for perving online wasn't quite there yet. I feel like right at the
Is
beginning
it
of the
now
internet. Oh
still?
yeah, that's all it is now.
Is it?
But my point is like right when everybody when the internet first came out was like very respectful. It was in a sense it was before kids learned to be like edgelordy freaks online. So
What's edgelordy?
you
I don't
play
even know
these
what that is
games.
either.
It doesn't matter. You play these games and you like walk up to another player and you'd be like, "Hail, how art thou?" And everybody didn't know how to be toxic
Dude, in
online yet.
1984, I was 25 years old. I was fucking bartending. I was here, my first studio manager gig.
Yeah.
But the internet, I remember the first thing that I needed it for was CC mail, which was intercompany email.
Okay.
It wasn't email to anyone outside of your LAN,
Okay.
local area network.
You were in like
Do you
an
that?
intranet.
Yeah, it was the intranet. It was the internal net.
Yeah.
But I'm so reliant on it now. I do all my communication via email.
You should see the text size on her cell phone.
It's really big. I can't see. I don't see well. But again,
takes
we
me
need to
out.
focus on Jeff. Okay?
Okay.
Quit trying to pull me away. I see what
I'm
you're
trying to
doing.
make your podcast good by focusing on on you, but
When you were playing music, was there a time that you were like, oh, you wanted to go from like, okay, I'm going to be a musician to I'm really interested in how people record it?
not really. Like
What? There wasn't an epiphany, a moment?
not until much. I never even thought. Well, yes.
Do you want water? Do you need water?
No, I'm good. I was like obsessed with. What is that noise? Is someone like knocking on the door? Someone lives in a wall. Okay, there's like a tremor. I'm like,
It's the people below
prepare
the
for like
stairs.
invasion or something. That's the thing about California. Anytime there's something unnatural happening, it's like, is there like a?
It's apocalyptic.
Yeah.
The zombies are coming.
I actually got my first digital interface I got when I was 13. So I guess I did want to be able to record my song. So I got this Aardvark interface. Is this
so
like
familiar,
a particularly
actually.
like audio centric podcast?
Well, it's audio-centric in the sense that I hope that people that watch it or listen to
Yeah.
it will realize that there's no one way to get your
Got
great
it.
job in audio.
Okay,
it is
cool.
audio
That's a great-
centric because I've
So
my job.
okay, here's my origin story. I remember now. It's hard to like really remember these things of youth. It popped into me. My obsession with audio started because I finally convinced my parents to buy me this first digital interface so I could record my stuff. Right?
Aardvark is familiar to me.
Aardvark was a company that's closed down now, but it was a digital interface, and you take the interface, it had a cable, and then you have to put like a card. You'd have to install a card into your PC.
Okay.
And like nothing ever worked back then. Anything, computer games, nothing ever worked
This
on
is
a
way
computer.
pre-Pro Tools. This is a recording.
They might have had Pro Tools in some extremely early form when I was 13, but they did have, they had Sonar, so Pro Tools would have existed by then, but not like how it is today, but like really, really early version. So I literally couldn't get this thing working. And it was so frustrating. And I kind of got it going, but I remember there was like, like an interface panel that had like sends and like all these terms that are like, what is this? And like the manual was terrible. I just couldn't get it. And back then there was no YouTube, so you can't.
Right.
There was no ChatGPT. There was nothing. So the source to learn how to use
all of which
your
I think
equipment
are
didn't
dangerous. By the way.
exist.
Even
Right?
though this podcast is on YouTube,
Yeah.
I think that to go online on YouTube to learn how to like I don't know, take a brain tumor out of someone's head and then try to do it yourself, I think that's bad.
Yeah. I got obsessed with like, why doesn't this work? And then I finally was able to record
So
something.
did you reverse engineer it, and is that how you figured it out?
No, I gave up. But I did record a thing, and it was just so awful. And then I listened to like my Smashing Pumpkins CD, and I'd be like, what? And then I would record something, and I was like, I don't understand. Like, this doesn't make any sense. And I kind of just quit. But I was always in the back of my mind, like,
I'm going to conquer that
I don't like
shit.
to lose. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
me
really
neither.
hate like losing a I can lose like a little menial stuff, but like overarching goals, I hate losing on, right? So
Well,
it's
that's
like
a good thing.
Yeah, so I never figured out how to get any recording to sound good, and there were no sources on it, so I kind of just gave up. Like I lived in the middle of nowhere, I can't learn online.
We're not going to
so.
say never because he has since perfected his craft and is always learning, as he will tell you,
Yeah.
but he's very accomplished now.
I gave up for several years, and then I went to college.
What did you study in college?
Finance. Yeah,
course.
not because I wanted to. It's just I didn't know what to do, and that's what my dad did. So I was like pretty lost. Like I think most people are like around 19, 18 are
knows
like
what they wanna
super
do
lost.
then?
Yeah, like,
That's what they want.
and I never even once remotely thought like, oh, I could do something awesome.
Unless
you know
you're
what
like
I mean?
Mozart, who knew what he wanted to do at 5.
Right. I'm just not that guy, you know? But I literally did not know what I wanted to do. I was pretty lost.
Finance is not a bad thing to have in your back
No,
pocket.
it's just like, well, if you don't know what to do, at least do something that like maybe will make money or something.
Yeah.
But I'm so wired the opposite of finance. So I wasn't like a really motivated, good student in college. Like I graduated college with a 2.99 GPA.
Dude,
But
I went to college for 7 years and didn't graduate because I changed my majors.
I was so like not unconcerned about college because if I'm passionate about something, I'll go all in. But by that point in my life, I wasn't passionate about anything. So, but the whole time I was in college, I was like in bands and stuff, and I'd be trying to make beats and songs. I'd still somewhere, I forget when, I got back to trying to like record my own stuff
But writing
again.
lyrics and stuff too, right?
Yeah, I would always write songs on the guitar, and I wouldn't really
Nice.
know what to do with it or how to think about that. But when it came time to being in bands and stuff in college, I would write songs, and I was like the singer in a band and this and that with my best friends, and we would play shows and stuff.
I would love to hear you sing.
I'll send you some stuff, but
I would love to hear.
yeah, I don't have anything from that far back in the college. Oh, actually, I do. I can send you some stuff, but it's like super cringe.
Where's your hair? He has the most beautiful hair.
Yeah.
Now, was your hair longish?
I didn't have like cool rock star hair.
You didn't
no.
have curly
The problem
hair?
is my hair is so curly
Me
that would
too.
take like 6 years for it to get long because it like curls into itself.
Your hair is awesome.
Yeah, my brother actually has long hair, but it would take him like 4 years to pull that off. But
Is he as good looking as you?
oh, better.
Will he ever listen to this podcast?
He might. Yeah.
Matt, you're super good looking and your hair is amazing.
Yeah. I think he just sent me a photo. He just got promoted. He's like 4 rungs away from being CEO of Microsoft.
Oh my
It's not
God.
crazy. He started as like an intern like 30 years ago.
Can I contact him with issues that I have with Microsoft?
Yeah, you should. Yeah, you
Wait,
should.
and this is where I show my age. Microsoft's different from Apple, right?
Right?
If I'm having trouble with my Apple device, can I call the Microsoft people?
You should just call him either way. He'll probably be able to
Help
figure it
me.
out.
No, I'm telling you, dude, I'm so lucky you and people like you around me in the studio. Like, I'll be like looking at Google Docs and being like, I don't help me. I help.
I used to be the computer guy for East West Studios, and now I'm like I would know everything about that
Oh, I
stuff.
forgot to
and
say, we're sitting in East West Studios, Studio 5, which I have the good fortune of managing. And Jeff, we're probably jumping way ahead.
Yeah.
But Jeff was in college, studying finance.
I actually graduated.
Did
with a very
graduate
bad
with
GPA.
the 2.99.
Which
That's
is
not
funny.
That bad.
It's
That's
not
like
terrible.
a C
But
plus.
here's
C
why it's
minus.
bad, because so many job applications say you need at least a 3.0.
Oh,
and then I
dude.
graduated with a 2.99.
You know what?
How ridiculous is that?
You know what I've done several times in my life, even though I didn't graduate? Said I graduated.
There you go.
Said I had an
Just as
undergrad degree
strong.
in psychology. You think they're going to go back? I mean, dude, I'm ancient. Were they going to go back to 1980?
You graduated
and find
emotionally.
out 1980 and find
Yeah.
out what I did. So were you still living in Arizona?
Yes, this was in Tucson, Arizona. So I was in a
Okay.
bunch of bands, and the bands break up, and then you're like hate music.
Living
and
with
then-
mom and dad, or had your own spot?
No, I didn't live with mom and dad because they're in like Scottsdale, Phoenix area.
Right.
So I was in Tucson, it's like 2 hours away.
Yep, I know.
So I mean, rent back then you could have
Even
your own
bigger
spot
snakes
easy.
and bigger scorpions in Tucson, by the way.
Could be true. Have to call a marine biologist or like a land biologist
A
or whatever.
desert biologist.
Yeah, a desert
desertologist.
biome specialist.
Yeah, what are you called if you're a desert specialist?
I don't know, a nerd.
Yeah.
But so I graduated and got a job at a financial planning place, which couldn't be like statistically. The laws of physics have me like the inverse of someone who should be doing
Because
that.
you're like a creative.
Exactly. So I'd be like wearing a suit to work.
Super hot.
No, not. There's nothing worse than like a 21-year-old who has like an ill-fitting business suit that's like barely cleaned and whatnot.
My
But,
only rule is no brown shoes with dark suits. That fucking bugs the fuck out of me.
yeah, that is. Or like, you know what I really hate is like a blue suit with brown shoes.
Yeah, no, you can't wear brown shoes with a suit that's blue or black.
Yeah.
Don't do it. Stop
That
it.
makes me uncomfortable.
Stop it.
Although I'm wearing a blue shirt with brown shoes right now.
Yeah, but it's not a suit.
Is this bad?
It's not a suit.
Okay. Do you like that flexibility? It's pretty
Dude,
decent,
that is
right?
very good. I'm good like that too. I'm old but super flexy as well.
That's good. That's good. Stay flexible.
Anyway, yeah, we're not going to put our legs around our neck on this episode.
No.
But
That's for those books you read in the morning or whatever. Yeah.
so college, finance, ill-fitting suits. This is how I pull it together. Do you like that?
Ill-fitting, yeah.
Do you like that? And
Hating my life
but
doing
still,
that job.
back in there that seed of, I want to know how to record.
Yeah, well, I would just do my job that I hated and then go to, in my apartment, I had this room called the War Room. Like, it was a 2-bedroom apartment, and one room was
Did you live by yourself?
No, I lived with Meg.
Oh, right.
Yeah,
Meg.
she met Meg. So I would have the War Room, which was our video game room, and then I would make my beats in that room and like still try to figure it out. And again, YouTube infrastructure wasn't there, so it was all terrible. Couldn't learn.
Did you have a dog in common?
Charlie, yeah. But we didn't get that dog yet, yeah.
Okay.
So I just had like an existential breakdown because I hated my life and the direction. And
you're sensitive too. He's a Cancer.
yeah. And I wasn't like holding out hope for, I could just do something that I want. It never occurred to me. Like, for whatever reason.
Like, you can do whatever you want because your parents, we love your mom and dad.
Yeah.
But they should have said, you can do whatever you want.
Right. Maybe
they did.
No, it was more like you should do
a job that makes
smart,
money.
Practical thing. You know what I mean?
Mine was always you had to have
that's not bad advice.
Something. It's not bad advice. You have to have something to fall back on. And my joke was, well, I have my giant butt.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
it's like something to fall back on. I never really had a B plan. I think I'm living my B plan.
Yeah.
Actually.
I mean, my age parents, their parents, like, just finished World War II.
Yeah, your parents are just
and we're
older
living
than
through
me.
And then went through the Great Depression,
yeah.
like all this stuff. So it's like they're trained with a much more like
practical,
pragmatic approach to life. So it's really good advice.
Yeah.
Because like what I do for
you
a living.
You need food.
Right. Well, what I do for a living, there's like 20 people on Earth probably at any given time that are at the top of the thing and make a decent income for mixing, maybe, and then like. Maybe 100 people. Yeah, it's small, whatever it is. I don't know. It's not great. So if you look at the statistics of trying to become a financially independent mixer that can have a house and a family and all this stuff, it's like in a population of 6 billion people, it's very, very small. So,
but we've already discussed that about 5 billion of those people are very smart.
That's true, and that sucks for them. But
we feel bad for them.
We do.
We're willing to help them along, but only so far.
Yes, that's true as well. So it's tough. It's not statistically, any person that cares about math will tell you it's a bad idea.
But when you came to this conclusion, like you're in your apartment and you're fucking like, fuck, I want to do something I enjoy.
Well, Uncle Chuck, crazy rock and roll uncle, who's awesome.
Love Uncle Chuck.
He's not even crazy. It just sounds cooler if he's crazy rock and roll Uncle Chuck instead of just Uncle Chuck, rock and roll uncle. Crazy.
What does Chuck do for a living?
Oh, he worked. Well, he's like an ex-rocker that was working at the power line. Oh, he'd be the guy that would like go up the power line pole and fix the power lines.
That dude's brave.
Yeah, it is brave.
DWP.
Yeah, that's how he started. But anyway, I had a meltdown. Eventually, you can only live the life for so long.
When you had this meltdown, when you were alone.
Probably not. I was probably just like in my apartment with Meg. I melted down. I'm like, I was like, this is not my life. I don't know what to do. When I was talking to Uncle Chuck and I'd be like making beats and he's like, well, why don't you're like working on music all the time. Why don't you like become one of those people that records music or whatever? You're freaking. And it never occurred to me. I wasn't holding out like some like secret dream about getting into music.
You didn't know that it existed? It hadn't connected the dots.
I knew that those type of jobs existed, but those weren't my kind of people. Those are just other people. Like the move to Hollywood to do cool stuff people, that's not my tribe. That's not my DNA.
So by the way.
Well, now I know, but I did.
He's such a player now.
What is that?
It's a compliment.
Okay.
Hollywood, he has conquered Hollywood.
I meant like success. Okay.
Okay, you mean success.
You're right.
All right.
Don't ruin the conclusion of the story. So crazy rock and roll Uncle Chuck, he gave me permission to see like a different side, a different path, right? Yeah. So I had no confidence to pursue this path, but I racked up enough fear to where fear can be super motivating, right? Yeah. So I finally racked up so much fear that I could run towards a dream as opposed to just having confidence to do it. So somehow, but at this point, I was living with my girlfriend. I had a job at a financial planning thing. I had just very little savings, so I just freaked out. And then Uncle Chuck gave me permission to find a different path. So I started like Googling recording schools and stuff like that and doing research and this and that. And I like worked up the courage to ask my dad if I would just like help me through college to give me money to go to recording school, which is just like another, I don't know, like what
20 grand or whatever.
How much is Crass? Crass back then was like, want to say like 12 to 18 grand or something like that.
Wow, yeah. Wonderful school, the Conservatory of Recording Arts and Sciences.
And this was like literally in the dark time. What was that? Around 2000, there was that financial mess around
2008 was the
2005.
Eight was the crash.
Oh yeah. So that was when I was trying to like ask my dad for money, and so we ended up getting some like loans and stuff.
Yeah, financial aid.
Yeah.
Yep.
And because there was like, so he's in the stock market, right? The whole thing freaking crashed.
Ooh.
So now it's like, oh, by the way, like
I don't have any money to give you. Yeah.
He did help me out for sure, but we
What's
took
your
some
dad's
loans
first
out.
name?
My dad's amazing. Bob Ellis, Robert Ellis, Bob. Yeah. So
Bob Ellis in my hometown is a very famous expensive clothing store called Bob Ellis.
Hell yeah, sounds like
Charleston,
pure
South
class.
Carolina.
And yeah.
Bob Ellis.
So I was super blessed, and I just like was so scared of my life. I just ran towards my dream. Like, so if you're sitting at home and you're not super confident, eventually you can get to a place where you're so terrified of the life that you made. So eventually, if you keep compromising yourself over many years and like not pursuing what you want, eventually you'll get to a place
You kill yourself.
where you're going to do that, or you're going to like run towards your dreams because your current state is too scary. So
much better option. So, but you were in Tucson. So
yeah. So luckily, the Conservatory for Recording Arts and Sciences was in Tempe. So that's 2 miles north, right? And I had resources in that town because I grew up
2
there.
miles north of Scottsdale. How far? From Tucson?
2 hours north of 2 hours
Right.
north of Tucson.
Right.
So I convinced Meg to move up to Scottsdale with me.
Right on, Meg.
Quit my financial planning thing.
Woo!
And then my best friend growing up, Cody Short, his dad like had an apartment complex that he owned.
Nice.
So they basically like family friends gave me a super cheap rent.
Sweet.
The year that I went to recording school was one of the best years of my life.
What year was that year?
2000. It was like 2008, maybe
Gotcha.
2007, 2008. So yeah, but once I got to recording school, I went from being the worst student on earth, the most least motivated student on earth, no drive at all in life, to being like, boom, the exact opposite.
I love when the light bulb goes
Yeah, the
off.
light bulb hit, and then I outstudied everybody. I got the best GPA in my class. I like went hard, was like really enjoying life. Because I saw what I had over most of the people that went to Crest is that I already went to college, completely wasted my parents' money by not applying myself.
It wasn't a waste.
And then that filled me with so much guilt because a lot of kids don't get their parents buying college for them. You know what I mean? And it wasn't like I went to Harvard. It was a state school, so it wasn't
Right,
like
but they
completely
spent
expensive. But they
money.
spent money for sure, and I completely blew it. And I had so much guilt over wasting that opportunity and
You're a good
seeing
kid.
like how my life got shitty and I felt stuck and freaked out, that till this day, like my work ethic never stops. Every once in a while I'll have a weekend or a week where I'm just like out of it.
You're always working.
For the most part, since that day when I internalized that guilt of wasting my parents' college money, knowing other kids don't get that like sometimes,
Right.
I felt so much guilt that I never stopped applying myself. And I also got to see the other side of the yellow brick road when you don't go after. So because I was stuck at this financial place. So yeah, since the day I started recording school, I've never looked back and never struggled to motivate myself too much.
I've been the chairman of the advisory board at the
Yeah.
conservatory for a long time, and I don't think I had already gone there in like 2004 or 5, probably was before your time, maybe 2002.
Yeah, I never saw you there or got to see you give a talk, which I know you do a lot. I never saw that.
I don't know what I did that year, but so that course, and I think we both already have given them their propers, but that course still, then and still, is probably Blackbird's great. There are other great schools, but I think the conservatory, is a really good curriculum.
Yeah, so there's been such a massive shift in technology and everything. So I don't know what their curriculum is like nowadays, but back when I went, there was no YouTube tutorial. There was nothing. So if you wanted to learn anything, you'd have to go to a school, right?
Right.
And now they're probably still great if they kept up with it and kept.
They're awesome. Yeah.
So
they've followed the trends.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I do with them is I'm supposed to like hip them to new technology or whatever, which is
what they did really well was preparing you to be a non-annoying studio intern.
Yes.
understanding signal flow really well, and just the foundations of being like a classically trained engineer, which are like pretty much lost on this day
I
and
think
age.
we lost one of the teachers that was a teacher for you back then.
Like losses and died.
Yeah, he passed away
yikes.
last week. Mike
What?
Stone? Mike Stone?
I don't know.
Anyway.
That's terrible.
Keith, am
Yeah.
I messing that up? Anyway, I don't know.
We need a Keith
Keith
in the
Lee,
booth.
he probably left. Sometimes
No,
he
he's right
leaves.
there. I see
Oh.
it. But we need like a Keith in the booth, like intercom thing or
Well, it's
whatever.
kind
where,
of like Howard Stern.
Yeah,
like
like-
Renee and Keith.
Yeah.
Like-
Isn't Robin in the?
Mike Jones, I'm a wiener.
Oh, that sounds
Fuck.
familiar,
Might
yeah.
have to edit that part where
Was
said
he
his
like
name
the
wrong.
tech?
He was like the department head.
He was the
Oh,
department
sounds
head
familiar.
of. You would have. He
Damn,
would have
that
been
does
there when
sound
you were. He
familiar.
would have been there when Jeff was there.
When I was there,
Damn,
Where did you go? What year did you go?
2011.
Oh, okay.
that's too bad.
Let's start with his name. Let's start. So I'm
Mike Jones.
Let's
Mike.
start with Mike Jones.
We lost Mike Jones. We lost Mike Jones. Wait, cancel that.
You don't have to cackle after you say it.
Well, no, because he said Johnson, and I just said we said the name wrong. Anyway, so sad we lost Mike Jones, who was the head of that recording department about a week or so ago. So
Damn.
he would have probably been there when you were there.
Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. They teach you real world experience. Not, I mean experience, but they give you an idea of what to be prepared for.
I was so nervous back then because I was like so obsessed. Like there's no going back to my other life. I was
You're
like,
still
I was so
obsessed.
nervous before every test.
That's
I
good,
remember
though.
my live sound test. I'd like sent feedback, like so nervous. I blank out on everything. Somehow if Ben O'Neill ever watches this,
Ben O'Neill's going to be on here.
he was oh cool. So Ben O'Neill, who is still working to this day.
He's amazing.
It's been amazing. Him and I were the first two interns of East West, but we were the same class together.
Oh.
And I think you got a 3.99 and I got a 4.0 GPA.
What?
And I just want to make sure that makes it out there into this podcast.
Ben
So
O'Neill, genius. And
Ben was so like effortlessly
He
good at
is.
stuff.
He is good. He's
where I
so
had to
smart.
like really be, they call it being thirsty. Like I was like, oh no, they call it being sweaty. I was like so sweaty
Sweaty and thirsty.
yeah, I was so sweaty.
He did just come from boxing class.
Yeah, I was literally sweaty probably too, and figuratively. But I would have to study everything, and then I would blank out, like on the signal flow test.
You
right, I
have
would
tests-
blank out so hard.
No, you have test anxiety. I used to have that because
Yeah.
I was actually a very good student in high school, a similar lazy student in college,
Yeah.
not motivated. But then I would have I would do one of either things. I would either do acid and go take my test and ace it,
Oh, nice.
or
I didn't
I
think
would
of
go
that.
take my test and forget everything.
Yeah, I feel like I would over intellectualize everything, meaning like there would be a simple answer, and I would run.
You used to
through,
do
like,
that?
Well, I'm nowadays like I under intellectualize everything because like your brain goes to mush eventually. You know, if you mix
What?
enough songs, when you focus your life only on mixing music, eventually you can just do that really well, and then everything else turns to mush. I've noticed.
Or you become
Specialized, and then
or
everything is
socially
mush.
inept, maybe. But
That-
that's
it doesn't
not true.
help
You're
well,
not socially inept. I told you.
It's easier just
Yeah.
to seem like a genius, and then when you act weird, people think it's like a genius trait, but really you're just socially
Awkward.
inept. Yeah, yeah. I mean, you're just like awkward. You're just awkward.
So you get that he's not awkward.
I can
You
be very awkward, but continue.
He's not.
Okay.
So you got. I wasn't back here yet. You get the internship at East West. You're
Yeah,
the
because
first,
I got a 4.0. I timed it accidentally. East West was reopening after the remodel, so because I got a 4.0 and I was not an asshat, and they knew they wouldn't embarrass the school, they sent me and Ben, who is also non-asshat.
Is that our friend Laura Duray? Now Laura Roberts. Was she your counselor?
I don't remember who my counselor was. I guess I'm a
She's
giant
my
asshole.
really. No, you're not. She's my super good friend, and she did that job.
Yeah,
She's
so
awesome.
they gave me an interview. That's all you can
Was it
hope
Blake
for.
and Jen?
It was Jen and Blake, yeah.
Yeah,
That's who I
tough.
interviewed with. And of course, like,
Blake Rogers, the son of the owner of East West Sounds, Doug Rogers, who we are grateful, ever grateful to. Known Blake since he was like 8. He's amazing. And Jen, who used to be my assistant when this studio was cello, became the manager at East West because I was in Pasadena at
Firehouse, yeah. So I was so scared. So I moved.
They're very serious. They're
I
very
had to
serious.
move to who they were
I
serious.
bet Blake and Jen were very serious.
It doesn't. You're so scared and blanked out when you're like a prospective intern interviewing that you don't really remember anything about the intern other than your own terror. But
I try to put people at ease when I interview them, and sometimes I fuck with them, but I try to put them at ease because even though I haven't had to do that in a really long time, I remember exactly what you're saying, the anxiety that's caused when you feel like this is it, this is my shot.
Yeah.
If I fuck this up, I'm screwed.
Yeah.
And you just want to make a good impression, and then, like, I'm sure you were fine. You got the job.
Yeah. You have to realize that most people who pursue audio, it's not like the bar is super high. You know what I mean by that?
Now, whoa. Okay.
If you go to Crass or any recording school, there's a lot of people that just are doing that to avoid life. And then there's people like me.
Well, that's true of all schools.
True, exactly.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of people that are all in and obsessed, right? So there's a huge shortage of people who really, really
Get
are
it?
all in and get it. And then there's a lot of people that are just doing it because it seems
But
cool.
that's why a good studio manager,
Right.
and Blake and Jen are both those things, that's why part of our gig is to weed you out.
Right. And sometimes being the like super nervous
That's a good
person,
thing.
it's because it shows how much you really, if you're too like, if you, first of all,
Blasé.
as a kid, walking into East West Studios is extremely overwhelming. Remember, like, I was a kid who grew up in the middle of nowhere, had never been in a recording studio other than at
School.
Crass.
Right.
And first of all, just going through Hollywood as a kid who grew up in the middle of nowhere is like, all I knew about LA and Hollywood was from movies. So, and
It's
I was
just
like
like
watching
that
like
anyway.
Boys in the Hood and movies like that about LA, you know what I mean? And so it's like, and I grew up in the middle of nowhere.
It's just like
so,
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, because it still is.
yeah,
Once Upon a
so
Time in
I
Hollywood.
remember the first day I got here just driving down Sunset Boulevard, just like, what the heck is going on? And I moved into a hostel. So I was living in a hostel in Burbank.
Oh, well, at least, okay, let's back up the truck.
Okay.
At least you were in Burbank, because Burbank is a lot safer than being in a hostel in Silver Lake or Hollywood.
Yeah, I can
Just
imagine.
saying.
Yeah. So Burbank, it was a room with a bunch of beds, and I was like had a
Were
bunch
there
of
like
bunk beds
people
and
from
stuff.
other countries in this
It was
hostel
more
in Burbank?
No, it was more like there's maybe some of that. I just remember it being a lot of like wannabe actors.
Oh, right. I think of hostels as being like an international thing, like when you go
Me
to a foreign
too. This is the
country.
only time I ever heard of. You hear it mostly at hostels when you're traveling backpacking
This is
through Europe.
domestic hostel?
Yeah, but they had some hostels there for like aspiring.
Oh, okay.
Because you know, like
People
rent
in the
here is crazy,
entertainment-
right? Yeah.
People in the entertainment business.
Yeah, so this is like the people who just get here. You know what I mean? So I'm like holding onto my laptop at night so no one steals it, kind of like a situation. So I was like, remember, this was like,
Burbank's pretty tame, though.
this was, I mean,
Pretty safe area.
I just got here. I don't know anything. You know what I mean? Compared to living out in the middle of
Burbank's
the
where they
desert.
did the Johnny Carson show and where they make the movies.
Yeah.
The Warner Brothers lot,
Yeah. Yeah.
which, by the way, I still love all that shit.
Yeah. If you grow up in like Scottsdale, everywhere looks shitty.
Dude, bring out Uncle Chuck. That's not true. I love Scottsdale. Bring out Uncle Chuck and take him on the Warner Brothers tour.
Did I do that already?
Dude, it's rad.
Someone took me.
It's really cool, actually.
Yeah.
Super cool.
So anyway, Burbank is fine.
You're in the
whatever.
hostel. You're in the hostel. Did you send out a bunch of resumes to other places?
I don't remember specifically, but maybe they make you send resumes to like 3 places or something like that. So I took my interview and man, I forgot. I haven't thought about that hostel in a long time. But my first people I met in LA were like actors that were at the hostel, you know?
Are you friends with any of them? Did they become famous?
No, I'm not in touch with any of them, and I don't think any of them became famous.
Bummer.
Yeah.
If you listen to this podcast and you were at that hostel in 2009,
Yeah, if you remember me.
in Burbank, and you remember Jeff
Yeah.
clinging to his laptop,
Yeah.
reach out, but only reach out if you're famous and really successful. Because if you're not, we don't care.
And then the one thing about living at the hostel is like, I don't remember having feelings like, oh, this sucks. I remember feeling this is like awesome. Like I was a little bit worried about my shit getting stolen, but like beyond that, I got pulled over twice in the first week that I was here.
Were you driving too slow?
No, it was just like the Burbank police back then were insane.
Oh no, they're still amazing.
And I'm like, what the? I never got pulled over once in my life, and I get
love
pulled
the
over
Burbank
twice for doing nothing wrong. In my first week in Burbank. So I'm terrified of
Are
Burbank.
they racially profiling you because you're a white kid with curly hair?
I don't know what it was. Like, I was like, what is going on here? Like, the Burbank police
Well,
were
you had
mean.
Arizona tags.
I don't know what it was, but the first person
Arizona
to pull
Tech.
me
You were
over was
from-
like yelling
You
at
were
me and
from out of
stuff.
state.
Yeah, I was like something. They didn't like me up in Burbank. I was like, so I'm like scared, but
I
also
love the
like
Burbank cops
really.
because they'll actually come when you call.
That's good. Well, look, come when
And
you.
I love LAPD too.
Yeah,
But you
things
know,
are different. Like
LAPD is overwhelmed.
this was 15 years ago, so like probably not even all the same people anymore. Who knows? It's probably. I think it's much better now. Nowadays, like you have this funny thing. Is like what was it? Your phrase is like you have to be like doing donuts on the 101 to get pulled over.
Yeah,
Nowadays,
yeah.
like you have to spin out or something.
Yeah, you
like,
have to be going like 100 or 5.
Yeah,
if you're
now-
going 5 miles an hour, you'll get pulled. If you're going 100 miles an hour, you'll get pulled.
Yeah.
If you're going anywhere between 50 and 80
Yeah.
or
I
90,
feel like since COVID, the police never pull over anybody for anything. It's like a laissez-faire. I've had expired tags for years, or
Oh, yeah.
this or that. I never get pulled
yeah,
over.
that's not even getting into
But
the
the first
discussion of
2
how
weeks,
overwhelmed they are.
the first 2 weeks I was here, I got pulled over twice and yelled at.
Okay,
Aggressive cops.
I'm just gonna go with the Burbank cops and saying you were probably driving like a dumbass.
I am like any one of my
You're a
friends will
great
tell you.
driver.
I drive. So slow.
You're a
I'm
great driver.
cruising. I'm too ADD to like play this game of aggressive driving.
Are you 80?
Oh, I mean, I'm so easily.
that even a
I
thing?
don't like the term as
I
it's
don't
like
like
a
that term
diagnosis
either.
or whatever. Like people get like all wrapped up. I just have a creative brain that's like, ooh, look at this, whatever. Like so.
I'm like shiny thing squirrel.
Yeah, exactly.
Does that
That's-
mean I have ADD?
No, it means that you have
I'm
a brain for
multifocusing.
strategy and creativity and
Yes.
like bigger world domination.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
That's why I had you on my show.
Yeah, I always think about a beehive, right? So in the beehive, there's different roles. The bees have different roles. There's like the bees that index where all the eggs should go, and like there's the ones that like clean the eggs and
Bees
the larvae
and
and
ants are
stuff. There's
fascinating.
the warrior bees, but then there's one bee that has to fly out and pick where the new hive is gonna go when you move.
Wow.
And I think I'm that bee. I'm the pick the
Dude,
new
that
hive
is the
spot bee.
greatest bee. And then you could hire their interior decorator bee.
Yeah, exactly. But some
For
people
the
call
new
that
pet.
you're just ADD. I was like, well, no, you just don't exercise.
what's-
You're vaping.
Do you know what's
And you're not.
You're fucking so good. You do all kinds of. You take good care of yourself, and I will not let you tear my friend Jeff Ellis down.
No,
You do
I'm
great things.
just saying people that get wrapped up in their diagnoses a lot of
right,
times. It's
right,
like,
right.
Don't. That's like a kind of like you're pigeonholing yourself into this ADD person. Like,
I agree.
No, you're just like a strategic genius person. So
Do you know what's interesting though? You pursued finance, and I have a friend who is in finance now still, and he quotes that he has ADD. I wonder if there's a lot of people in the finance in that type of detail-oriented world that have, even though you're a creative, I wonder if there's people in those kinds of jobs that have the same kind of brain. Because to some people, math is creative, and music is kind of math-like.
yeah.
In
Well,
a
you have to remember,
way.
I was the worst finance person in the history
Okay,
of
yeah, so then you don't
Earth.
count.
So, and I do know my accountant, who's amazing. He like takes pleasure.
Yeah, they
in
like it.
doing I feel so bad for him, and then I watch him doing it because for me I would go insane in 2 seconds, but he like loves it.
I kind of
It's a
have a love
calming thing for you.
I have a love thing with numbers because
Yeah.
it's kind of like when you're finished with a task like that and it's completed and you know you've done it and you've done it right, you're like, okay, I'm satisfied.
Yeah, so what I'm saying, that person in the beehive would be like indexing where the larvae go. You know what I mean? And how many larvae do we have? How many do we need to grow?
But I'd want to fly out with you to find the new hive
But
spot.
that's what your job is too. There's multiple colonies. You know what I mean? So you're like that too. That's why we always got along so well because you're wired like me in a goofy way. But
Totally.
yeah, so
I love you.
I
So,
love you too.
I know. I
We
do
used to
love-
drink tequila. That was like
I could never really drink tequila. I think I'm allergic
you would
to
have
agave.
sangria. That's how I learned about sangria. I never knew what sangria was before I met you.
Sangria, yeah.
Yeah.
At the Mission, yeah. So you get to East West. You're doing the interview with Blake and Jen, and obviously,
I got it.
You got the
we
gig.
found like it took like a week to find out. So me and Ben were
they
like
left you
we both
hanging?
interviewed. We were hanging, sleeping in the hostel, getting
was
pulled
Ben at the
over.
hostel too?
No, I don't know where he was, but we were both. You know, the thing about leaving recordings, well, everybody lands in these weird, unusual situations, living with like 7 people or this and that. And this was a financial crisis year,
Right.
So everybody was like most people that if you had any investments or whatever, your like retirement account is
Yeah,
now
your
half of what
401k
it
is
was. It
gone.
used to
Yeah,
be.
yeah.
It's gone. So everybody is.
Stress.
Everybody's stressing, you know what I mean? So, yeah, so I picked the worst time. And also, mind you, that was like probably the lowest point for the music industry in terms of we're living in post-Napster world without streaming. So CD, like the music industry is in the gutter. The financial industry is in the gutter. There wasn't streaming revenue, nothing. It was just pure Guttersville, and that's when I'm starting my career. But it's always good to kind of start at the bottom, and then things would go up.
You can only
from
go
there.
up, right?
Yeah.
So you started here, and
The first thing they had me do
Yep.
when I got hired was I went in, and then Reese, rest in peace.
Yes, Reese. Reese Moody, no longer with us.
Yeah, I love him.
Amazing.
Really miss him. He was like, I need you to go into Studio 4, which was being used as storage,
Right.
which is now my
It's your
room now.
Jeff has a room here now. He's
Yeah, so
awesome.
he handed me an axe, and he's like, go
An
bring
axe?
this to the
Wait, whoa, an axe.
Yeah, there was a gobo in there, and he handed me an axe, and he's like, take this gobo outside and just smash it down because we got to get rid of it. So
Dude,
my first
I
thing
probably
is,
need that gobo now.
I don't think it was one you would want. It was
Okay.
like decrepit and messed
gotcha.
up. So the first thing I was doing as an intern for East West was axing down gobos. It was
Nice.
awesome, yeah.
Getting rid of that pent-up anxiety.
Yeah. And this was like right when East West was turning back on, so everything was looking beautiful, but from a technical standpoint, a lot of work was left to be done. So
Right.
me and Ben wired up the echo chambers. Like we were doing
Wow.
tasks like that, all sorts of things.
And Gary
that-
Marburg was a chief engineer then.
Yep. So he would give
come
us
back.
tasks, and it would be a lot of just like weird, hey, this is a confusing situation. Like, for example, the Patch Bay artwork in Studio 3, they're like, do the input out. So all that colorful artwork that you see on there, that was all done by me on my laptop. It's
Oh,
held
wow.
up to this day.
It is held up.
So all those pieces of plastic that are in there, I cut those.
Oh,
I printed
wow.
out,
Oh, I
picked all the
love that.
colors.
I love
That's
the
my whole
colors.
scheme.
I
Yeah, it's the
actually
only
love
one in
that.
the studio that's colorful.
It's super
What is
cool.
that?
Well, some of them have color, but
Do they? I
most
don't
of
know.
them
Not
are
like that.
Some of them are green and yellow or red, but that one is super cool.
Yeah,
Studio 3 is my
so
favorite.
we would do. So Ben made the remember Al Jr.? Is it still called Al Jr. in Studio 1?
It is, and there's a couple of reasons about that. So Alan Sides, who had Ocean Way, of
Yeah.
which this was the East Building, they would make remote tie line boxes. I don't know what else to call it,
Yeah.
basically. And so that was called an Al Jr., but then Gary's son helped
Yeah.
work on one. So there was one called a Mick Jr.,
Ignis Jr.
Ignis Jr.,
Yeah.
and
Well, let me tell you the whole story. So
Yeah.
I was going to tell you that story.
yeah, oh, sorry.
So we were all like, Al Jr. is this box that you plug microphones into in Studio 1. And what's cool, like most studios will have, you'll plug the microphones into the wall. But in Studio 1, it's so, since it's so giant, and like there is this box that was tethered to the wall, and you can move the box anywhere and plug in the microphones. And it said Al Jr. on it. And to us, it was this, it's an old box, so it's like, who is this Al Jr.? Like this is like the legend of Al Jr.
It
So
could also be Alan Sanderson, who you'll meet at NAMM if you go down to NAMM.
I think it's
he worked
Alan
for me at
Sanders. So,
Cello.
I found out who it was, but
He worked for me at Cello.
so then Gary or someone was like, we need to make Al Juniors for Studio 2. So they put Ben on that job, and Ben made two beautiful new Al Juniors for Studio 2. However, Jeff, being the marketing genius as he is, swoops in and gets the label maker and puts Jeff Jr. and then on one, he made two of them. So there's a Jeff Jr. in Studio 2, and then Ben Jr. There's a Ben Jr.
Aw.
So that's why it's Ben and Jeff Jr. But I didn't make any of those. I just swooped in.
Nice.
Label made my name on the
Good.
second one.
P-Touch.
But he's 1 through 24 or whatever. He gets like the prime spots, and I'm like
24,
25 to whatever it goes to. So
48,
yeah,
all right.
yeah. So and then that owl that was up there. In Studio 2, I placed that up there in that era.
I love that.
This was
I
in-
had that at Cello, though. I did have that owl.
So that owl was found in the storage room.
Yeah, there's a plastic owl
So
that
it would have been
lives
yeah.
in the loft of Studio 2.
Yeah.
And I put it there very many years ago as a joke because we had pigeons on what is now the roof was a storage area, and we had pigeons. So I bought this big plastic owl.
Yeah.
And I would run around with this plastic owl, and I put it up there because a pigeon
So
got
you put it
into
on the
Studio 2.
You put it on the Studio 2 loft.
I did.
Okay, so here's a great story. This is great. So while you were gone, when they remodeled,
Yes, I was gone from 05 to 2010.
when
I was
they
gone for 30.
remodeled the studio, at some point,
They found
I guess
out.
the studio flooded out or something. It closed down, and then someone put that owl into storage in the room where the plate reverbs are.
Yep.
So we were tasked to clean out that room, and I found the owl, and just out of like luck or happenstance,
Put it back
I
in too?
put it back up there on the roof there. Yeah, so that would have been just by happenstance where you put it
See?
originally, I put it up there. Yeah, isn't that
See?
amazing?
It's amazing.
And then I heard some like ex assistant stole that owl and they had to get a new one, or maybe he sent it back and I'm not sure if that's the original, but now there's 2 owls up there. I don't know why there's 2 now.
I think it's because the original one got returned. But I really, you
Okay,
know,
that's if the
I should remember the culprit and I don't. I have those.
people know who it is. I forget.
I
who
have
it is.
those all over my garden at home as well.
Okay, yeah.
Because I'm a gardener and I have big plastic owls and they have like glowing yellow eyes, and they scare away the birds and keep them from eating my stuff.
Nice.
But yeah, the owl.
So there's little things like that all over the building
Owls
that
are
are super
mascots.
special
It's
to
a
me.
special building.
Because there were no real bookings when I first started, so it was a lot of like little projects, confusing projects.
I never noticed your tattoo. Is your tattoo a cassette deck, like a ghetto
oh, this
box?
is good. So this was my
Is that a ghetto box?
kind of. This is my first Sony boombox. I still
It's a
have it.
boom box?
Yeah, it's my first Sony.
Did I call it boom box?
And this is what I
It's
would
a
listen to.
double cassette boom box.
Yeah,
That is genius.
I think I have it in my studio. I'll show you. It's like
I'm obsessed.
So what this boombox was the first thing that I ever listened to the radio on, and I would like record the radio. And I think that's where I fell in love with music, is because there wasn't a lot to do in the middle of nowhere. So we'd have the radio, and the songs that I would like I would record onto this boombox, because it had that
cry
thing where
right
you
now.
could like record, right?
I'm gonna cry
I'll
right
show
now.
you the boombox. So
I'm gonna cry right now.
I still have it.
I have to tell you a story.
Okay.
It's about the boombox. So many years ago, I was at AES in New York, and my dear friend Ken Rose, who I recently saw, we were having a party in the hotel room that we were in during AES, and this is in New York, and we didn't have any music to play in the room. So we're in Times Square. We go down to this shop, and we buy what's called the Ghetto Blaster 9000. They still make these. I'll show you a picture one. We get the Ghetto Blaster 9000. We buy a bunch of booze. We get it into this. The elevator was the size of this thing. It was so tiny. Like we couldn't fit us and the things in there. We had 2 chips. And so the Ghetto Blaster 9000.
Was it really called that, or was that
It
your
was
pet name
called
for
that.
it?
It was
Oh,
called the
wow.
Ghetto Blaster 9000.
Okay.
And it was, I believe, a dual cassette, like the one that you have, the Sony that you have on your arm. And we had this party, and then we returned it the next day and got him running back.
Nice. That is a little classic trick.
I'll have to find a picture of the Ghetto Blaster 9000. But I just saw that. I was like, how have I not ever noticed that
Well,
you
it's
had
not.
that?
This is only like 2 years old. So.
Oh, okay.
But.
I fucking love that.
Yeah,
dude.
I guess now that I remember, we'd make songs and record into this thing too. So I have little cassette tapes of when I was a little kid singing on that. Yeah, but so this is like just to remember to sometimes when music
Origins?
gets you stressed out, just remember like why you fell in love with music the first time, because you do enough time in the studio, it's like easy to lose the magic if you don't keep reminding yourself how special it is. Even walking into East West. The first time you ever walk into a studio like this, it's like, what? This is
Yeah.
insane. And
I try not to take it for granted. I get jaded with the pressure of the actual job sometimes,
Yeah.
of sales and stuff like
Yeah.
that. But I gotta say, every time I walk in here, I can't pinch myself that I get to be, especially that I get to be the boss. It's
a lot of the
awesome.
smells are exactly the same here as they were 15
There's
years
some
ago.
mojo.
And they're good smells, and the smell memory for humans is super strong, and it
Right?
can really bring you back to nostalgia
Well, and
territory.
it's true, almost more so than a song. The song does the same thing, right? Song takes you back to a time and place.
Yeah.
But smell. So you get the internship, and then
We did a bunch of fun stuff.
Yeah, you did a bunch of fun stuff,
Yeah.
and then you got hired and paid and become a runner, and then I came back in 2010, and you were starting to assist. Were you already assisting?
When I came back was in the phase of the career, or when
I came back.
or when you came back, I was in the phase of the career where I was kind of like the runner
Were
that
you
was like the
straddling?
most dependable. Like I would be thirding on sessions. I knew how to do all the lighting stuff, but I was still very much a runner. And we were all super excited that you came and injected this new fun energy. And
Is that true?
yeah.
Oh wow.
Well, I don't know if we were excited after we met you. I think everybody was really excited.
Oh good.
But
I love this
before we
place.
meet you, it's like what we've heard all these things, but we don't know what to think quite yet. You know what I mean? But it was a great vibe shift,
Scary
like a
lady.
really good vibe shift, and it was awesome.
And Blake became my assistant and
Yep.
stayed my assistant for about 5 years. He's amazing. I'm going to get to see him
Blake.
next week.
Blake is awesome. Yeah.
He's so smart.
Without
and
Blake,
so
I
wonderful.
wouldn't have this job remotely.
Dude,
you know?
he's such a wonderful person. He has
Yeah.
such integrity, and he's such a sweet
I
person.
love Blake. Yeah.
Love him too. Love Doug too. Love you all. Love all
yeah.
the Rogerses.
Yeah, they've been super, like,
Good to
ultimately
us.
the reason why I have my own studio in here and why I have my career is because the family looked out for me, didn't fire me, and kept me around. You know what I mean? So
I remember, and you could totally correct me if I'm wrong about this, but I remembered like you said, you were the dependable one. I came back. You guys were already in place. Blake wasn't nervous per se, but I think there were people that are nervous because they just hadn't met me before and didn't know that I had a love for this building and
Yeah.
that I wasn't going to hurt anybody and that it was all going to be fine.
Yeah.
I was so excited to come back and am still happy to be here. But I remembered, and you're still this way, you were the person that I could ask to do something and I would know. I wouldn't have to think about it anymore. It would get done. And
Yeah.
that's so important. If you're a young person and you're listening to this, have integrity, be reliable,
Yeah.
stay true to your word. If you tell me you're going to do something, if you tell someone that you work for you're going to do something, do it.
Yeah.
And if you don't know how, ask.
That's how
It's okay
Trevor
to
and
ask.
Ivan are. You know what I mean?
Both the people that work for Jeff also worked for me too. And I would like to say that
Trevor's
I
editing a
miss-
horror film
I
right now.
miss Trevor and Ivan lots. I love my current staff. You guys are all fantastic. But I really like Trevor and Ivan.
They're great.
Great
And
people, smart people.
super loyal,
Again, reliable.
good team. We all have like the same sense of humor.
Yes.
That's the biggest thing. Like,
You-
and
You're in-
also we have just a system in place where I don't really have to do much of anything. I'm like you. I've been like the tyrant boss, and I think that's something that is like a new boss thing. You know what I mean? When you're like. And by tyrant boss, I just mean you're freaking out all the time.
You're worried.
You're nervous. You're
Yeah,
scared
you're
you're going to go
nervous.
broke. Is
Yeah.
everybody going to hate my music? And then you're like full of fear. So you're like, everything's got to go right. So you're like, no, you got to do it this way, whatever. But over time, you learn the skill of being a better boss. And like now, one of the biggest things is hire people that you really can just like you're free.
That you can trust.
You're free
Yeah.
like a dove. Release them like a dove, and
Yeah.
then they do everything. And then
We have a great crew right now.
you can motivate through love. And like the worst I ever do is
try.
like if someone fucks up, I'll make a sarcastic joke about it. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And then we all laugh about it. But when most people, everybody's wired a little bit differently, but most people, if you keep them in a state of like fear and tension, they're going to do worse work and not better work. You know what I mean?
It's a different kind of fear. I think it's more like we were saying, it's almost like a parental thing where, you expect a certain level.
Yeah.
And if you keep people, we were saying the bar was low earlier, but we didn't really mean that because if you have a certain standard and you
Yeah.
expect a certain level of performance, people want to rise to that level.
Yeah.
People want, generally speaking, and I'm not talking about unhealthy people pleasers. I'm talking about people who want to do the
Yeah.
job well.
Like if Ivan does something fucks up, he will be way harder on himself.
Exactly.
I don't need to do anything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because we all are like such a family that it's like they just want it to
Well,
go
you
right.
want
You know what I
this,
mean?
yeah, you want the same thing. So back to when you were bridging that gap and I came back, and I'd love to hear your version of this story, but what I remember is just getting the call one day from an artist that I hadn't heard of before that needed to do a vocal, and I needed you to do it. And it wasn't even, like, oh, Jeff's the only person to do it. I don't think it was quite that situation, but it was, okay, this is happening in real time.
Yeah.
And this person is coming in like soon.
Bernd.
What-
Remember German Bernd?
Oh, I love Baron Bergdorf. Yeah, it
Yeah.
was Baron. But no, I'm talking about Frank Ocean.
Okay, so that came. The story is a little different. Are
Okay.
you talking my first time being an assistant?
Yeah.
Okay, my first time being an
Bernd.
assistant was Bernd. And
Okay.
then by the time Frank came in, I was like one of the established. I've been an assistant for about
Okay.
a year. Okay.
Okay.
So
I probably fucked this story up 100 times. Then.
no, it's
Good
okay.
for
Well,
correcting me.
it's so yeah. I mean, you didn't. So so
I didn't know who
Bernd-
Frank was, though. I didn't.
right. No, but okay. So two different stories. So my first time being an assistant was, as you said, you're the third or whatever,
Right.
and
That makes more sense now.
yeah, you're the third, and then someone doesn't show up, and then a really chill, amazing client's gonna have a really easy
Baron is a good guy.
session, and so Baron is coming. Oh, like Jeff can do it today, and I remember he shows up with his own converters, and I'm like,
Baron Bergdorf.
yes, Baron. I need to reconnect with him. Great first session. He hands me this. I'm not obviously so nervous,
Yeah.
and he
You're worried
hands
about
me
clocking
this.
issues, yeah?
Well, he hands me this external converter, and I'm like, okay, I learned how to do this in school, but that means there's like word clock and this and that, and you have to go deep into Pro Tools, and I'm like, oh, so I get it working, like thank God, and I think he could sense I'm nervous because he said something to me. I forget what it was, but he said something that really calmed me
Oh.
about
It's only
Gary
music.
said a thing too that was
It's only
like,
music. No one's gonna die.
well, Gary said that later, and that was a super thing that I still say to this day. So it's true. Like, wait, yeah, that is true. This is only music. No one's gonna die here today, so it's okay. That was a great Gary thing. And then Barron said something like that too. So anyway, and then I was off to the races. So I did okay on that one, and then a year would go by, and I became one of the assistants. So like, eventually, I was like, I feel like I had about a year of time when I was just an assistant engineer, maybe a little bit more than a year, where I kind of stopped running entirely, and now I'm one of the assistants. So doing lots of sessions, getting to be a fly on the wall of the best engineers and producers in the world of every different genre, whether that's like orchestral recording, rock bands, rap sessions.
Super
and
diverse here.
and that's the problem. If you just come out of like a rap studio, you only know that workflow. If you just come out of a rock studio, you don't know how to run Pro Tools for a rap session.
Right.
Everything's different. Completely different, even down to the way they take lunch is completely different. It's funny. There's a terminology in the way to use Pro Tools and when you're tracking an orchestra that's it's like an entirely different part of Pro Tools, and they have a language and everything. So I got to learn all that, and that was super helpful for my career to make me a super well-rounded, like classically trained engineer, right?
Right.
And you get to see the engineers that come in.
That's what's great about a studio like this. And if you learn in a place like this, you're going to know how to do everything. Today, classic example, there's a manufacturer doing an event in Studio 1. There's a rock band in Studio 2.
There's an event tonight?
No, it's happening already during the day. It's a video
Okay.
shoot. And for a microphone company. And then Studio 2 is a rock band with Joe Ciccarelli, who we love, who's our other tenant. And then Studio 3, Lee Ritenour and Dave Grusin and Alex Acuna are in Studio 3 today.
Okay.
I mean, this is OG, amazing musicians.
Yeah, one of the things that these type of opportunities are so rare nowadays, and it's unfortunate, and it's really a problem because no one's learning the art. Maybe, I don't know, 50 people a year in Hollywood are getting to learn. If maybe lower, because how many Capitol's closed, the record plant is closed. There's
United's closed.
East, West, left.
Sunset,
I guess Henson
Conway,
was Henson. So there's
Henson.
maybe 5. So how many people on Earth get to be? And obviously there's other studios, but something about LA is just like this is the center.
Aw.
And so there's not a lot of classically trained engineers anymore. There's YouTube trained engineers, and that's created a huge problem that we'll talk about in a second. But
Yeah, we're going to get to that and how you're going to help solve that.
yes, I'm going to solve it. I'm going to stop complaining. So basically, a year went by, and then Candace is like, hey, can you do the session? There's a vocal tracking session in Studio 3. Cool. Got it handled. And then that's the day I meet Frank Ocean, right?
Yes.
And
Such a sweetheart.
Frank, at this point, had a mixtape out that was popular, but he wasn't like a well-known artist or whatever.
He wasn't famous
He
yet.
was kind of like a songwriter that with a mixtape out.
Right.
In fact, he was like signed as a songwriter to Def Jam or something like that, and then like they didn't even know he was signed under his real name, and they didn't even know they had Frank Ocean. It was like
that's
pretty
funny.
funny thing like that. But from the second I met Frank, it was like he had an energy and an aura about him. It was like if Prince walked by.
He's
You know
so
what I mean?
yeah,
It's completely different from Prince, but
Dude,
like
he's so creative and he's so talented. And and
so
great. I love him.
knew he was going to be something special the first moment I met him, and that is something that you almost never feel. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's a lot of talented people, but you almost never feel like a wave of energy pass through you as someone walks by, right? That's like
he's a good vibe.
Extremely rare.
And then he sort of, I mean, he helped propel you.
Well, so what happened was I was the assistant engineer at the beginning of Channel Orange, okay?
Right.
A couple weeks goes by, and one day I'm at Casa Vega with
Love
my
it.
cousin because the engineer earlier in that day told me, hey, you can tear everything down. We're not coming in today. Cool. So there's no setup, but there's nothing. I think I had the day off because the engineer told me the session's canceled.
Uh-oh.
Okay. So I'm at Casa Vega with my cousin, Ashley.
Did I call you up and yell at you?
No, the story's so good. This is
Okay,
like a
good.
good story. So I was told there's no session. So I get a call from Frank on my phone while I'm at Casa Vega drinking margaritas and stuff with my cousin. Casa Vega's so good, by
Love
the
it.
way.
We got to go. I love it there.
I'm like 2 to 3 margaritas deep, like 200 chips, like
Dude, it's
carb
featured
loaded.
in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Okay.
Yeah, I love that film. I get a call from Frank who's like, "Hey, I'm here. Why is there nothing set up?" And I'm like,
Ooh.
"Oh, your engineer said the session was canceled." And he's like, "Oh." interesting. Okay, 1 second. Let me call my manager. I'm like, okay, cool. And it's not like Frank was mad at me or anything.
Right,
I was
right.
like, this is like that's not that's a typical thing. An engineer can cancel a session. You know, what I
Sure.
mean, no one's gonna be like, oh, let me check with the artist.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I was like, okay, I'll take your word for it.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I get a call from his manager maybe like 15 minutes later, and maybe I shouldn't say this, but it doesn't matter. It's been 15 years, but basically they were just
We're
kind
not
of
working
like,
with that engineer. We want you to come in.
you said it. So
I
you
can
said
say
it.
that.
Okay, so that was the moment.
Were you slightly buzzed on that?
Oh wait,
session?
I forgot a thing.
Yeah.
Okay, I forgot a thing. Before any of that happened, there was one day the engineer didn't show up, and I filled in. So Omar, I do have to give a lot of credit to Omar Keith, the producer.
Keith, amazing.
Omar said, Jeff will handle it for the day because the engineer didn't show up to the session. This is before this.
If you want to lose your
This
gig,
is before
don't
Casa
show up.
Vegas. So for whatever reason, I don't remember why, engineer didn't show up to the session, so I just filled in. And Frank and I had a really good rapport. If you're an assistant engineer for a year at a studio like this, and you're probably, in a lot of ways, by then you can run a session really well. And
Yeah.
sometimes you're even like can run a session better than
Yes, it's not
certain
unusual.
artists at the person
Certain
will bring-
engineers.
Yeah, so like
Yeah.
but then there's also legends who come in and you're like
Noted.
nowhere near their
Noted.
level. But
Noted.
sometimes if you really apply yourself, you can really knock it out of the park.
When you know the rooms really well, and people that are coming in that maybe have even great engineers, maybe who've never been here before,
Yeah.
the smart ones rely on the assistant
You know
because they
what
know
it
the
was, though?
assistant's here every day.
You know what it was? I wasn't even that good. Like I was good enough. But Frank trusted me. He could just sense that he could trust me. I would never leak anything.
Dude, that
I would
vibe.
never betray him. Honestly, I think that's the only thing that
Dude,
mattered.
that bond is
Yeah.
super important.
When I was fast enough to, he doesn't move that fast anyway. He's very he's like super patient. So I was never one of these guys. I was like, you'll see some people like Tizio, is like badass engineer. He can go like super fast on Pro Tools. I was never that guy. I was like, very okay, and I have like a good quip, like a funny joke. I was like, okay, whatever. But certain.
It's obviously working out for you.
I mean, Frank would spend 3 years on an album, so he'd just be like, okay.
Dude, we love this.
Not to like be like I was fast by most people's standards, but I wasn't a gangster. You know what
You're
I mean?
good.
Like, yeah, I was fast
You're
enough.
fine.
I was fast enough and dependable, like you said.
Yep.
And I would
Trustworthy.
a lot of things too is like it's like what's synonymous with an engineer is like grumpiness in like a lot of ways. That's the trope, right?
Yeah,
you know,
don't
like
be
a grumpy
grumpy.
sound guy.
Don't be grumpy.
So that exists. There's a lot of grumpy sound guy, and that's the end of their
I
career.
think they're just frustrated with stupid people. And I would have to shout out to those people for legitimate
That's
reasons.
the thing. You gotta, if you can't fake being, and I've gotten way bad at this, but if you can't fake
Enjoying-
being, it doesn't matter if they're dumb.
Yeah.
If you're showing up to their session, you better cultivate some
Hands
positive
down.
energy.
Agreed.
And then every once in a while,
You're
you can,
getting paid to
you're
do
allowed
your
to
job.
snap like twice a year. I'll
You're
give you
getting
2
paid to do your
snaps.
job. Do your job.
Yeah. So especially when you're young too, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's
shut
like
your hole.
Yeah, shut your hole. And so
Do
I
your
think I
job.
would probably have like a fun energy. It was like I'm not
You have
gonna
a
bring
great
the vibe. I'm not gonna bring the vibe. Also, I keep my mouth shut. Like I'm super talkative right now, but like there isn't even a photo of me and Frank Ocean together on this earth, and I was his engineer for 5 years because I never wanted to be the guy that asked him for a photo because I
You
thought
know-
that was corny.
You know, one of the reasons why I did this podcast was I walked into my friend Paula Salvatore's office at Capitol,
Yeah.
point in case of what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And she had all these cool pictures. She's a wonderful person. She has all these amazing pictures, like pictures of Paul McCartney and Sting. And I'm like, fuck, I don't have hardly
have
anything.
no photos
I know
of
I have hardly
anybody.
anything. And I'm like, man, I'm going to retire in a couple of years. I don't have shit. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm going to do a podcast.
Yeah.
It was literally like that.
Yeah, I thought it would be. I just never,
I wanted to talk to
never asked him for a
people.
photo once in 5 years. Thought it would be super corny.
There's a right. I think it all comes down.
There
to
is a right way to. I'm like
It's
honestly.
reading the room, bro, and
yeah.
you get it. You read the
There's
room.
certain artists where I feel comfortable asking certain things,
Sure.
and certain artists I don't.
Yeah.
And Frank totally would have taken a photo with me had I asked, but I would.
want you.
Yeah, so I just don't want to be. I always for whatever reason I'm just like I'm not going to be the
We didn't
corny
want
guy.
to make it about you.
I also don't want to
Yeah.
make people think like I'm in it for like the clout. This is when like the clout thing first started happening and like Instagram first started being a thing. And I know it's just like, and also at Crass, they teach you like no photos in the studio.
Yes.
Don't talk about what's going on in the studio. I even felt
Yes.
like weird saying that the manager called me that the other guy was fired. Like you don't talk about, there's like, I will
Yeah.
not talk about anything that went on in those sessions
Yeah.
other than very basics. Like I got my first break with Frank and it was awesome.
God bless.
And I ended up being yeah, so the manager called. I'm at Casa Vega. I'm like, well, I'm drunk. I can't engineer today. Like, so we started the next day as his.
Dude, nice.
But
of
I didn't
them.
know it was my big break. You know what I mean? It was
You
just,
just
I
think
knew
you're going
Frank
in
was
to help Frank.
Yeah, I knew Frank was amazing. I'm like, oh, whoa, okay.
I
I'm
get to
gonna
go
be
help
like
Frank.
the engineer now. So, I'm gonna be the first, and then I just
Who negotiated you getting paid more than your assistant pay? I hope it was me.
no. I just kind of I
you
remember.
ask him?
Remember, I forget his last name. Ryan. You remember Ryan? That was an assistant here for a little bit. That was like used to work with like Death Row for a little bit. What was his name?
I don't know.
One of the assistants here. God.
But he told
Great
you to
guy.
ask for.
I asked him, hey, what is like a typical
Oh,
thing?
Ryan. Yeah, he ended up going to Warner Brothers. Ryan Kennedy.
Yeah, Ryan
that's his
Kennedy.
name.
I'm pretty sure it's Ryan Kennedy.
Lovely guy,
That was my
super
that was
awesome
my
guy.
era, right?
Yes.
Bought a house in like
Yes, he's
Eagle Rock based on like
awesome.
okay, cool.
Awesome guy. He's at
Ryan
Warner Brothers.
Kennedy, we were talking about like what's
think it's
typical, what's this something that sounds really right.
Yeah.
He's at home
Like reddish
screaming.
hair.
Yeah.
Super
Great
cute.
guy.
We love
awesome.
you, Ryan. If we fuck this up, we'll get it back.
Super helpful in transitioning me to
Smart.
being a first engineer and
Good-
tell me
good
what
engineer.
to what to charge and how to do on call and this and that. I didn't know what the hell I
Dude,
was
good
doing.
engineer too.
Yeah, great engineer. So that all that stuff was scary to me, asking for money, this and that, but it all got figured out, and I ended up making way more money than I was as an assistant. You know what I
Yep.
mean?
I tell people that, and that's the other thing about this. If you're watching this and you're thinking like, oh, like Jeff started talking about how he, left college and his parents had helped him pay for college, and he felt guilty, and that was another motivator
Yeah.
to dedicate himself when he went to trade school. It's like, look, if you do this and it is luck and timing, but if you do it and dedicate yourself to it, you can go from being an intern to making great money in 5 or 6 years.
I make a lot more money than my entire cost. I'm gonna brag for a second, but I want to inspire people because I followed my dreams. I make way more money just mixing one album than the cost of my entire tuition.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So it's just like,
Oh, yeah.
That being said, I was so broke for so long, living in hostels,
Yeah.
and then Frank paid me really well, really
Yeah.
generous,
He's
really
wonderful.
well. But he doesn't work year round. So I mean, like, or he will, but it'll be like, I don't know what he's like
You
nowadays.
have
But
to
back
work
in the
with more than one artist to make a living.
but I didn't because I never wanted to not be available for him. So there's a little bit of that. But when I worked for him, I was just working for him. But he might take a month off. So I have a really great month, and then it's like he's in Europe doing whatever. You
Right.
know what I mean? So it was a great income, but you don't really know how to plan, right? So
Right.
I remember my first
Feast or famine.
I remember my first big check. It was like I went with Meg to after being broke forever.
Yeah.
I went with Meg to Whole Foods back before Whole Foods was owned by Amazon.
I like
and
to
it
call
was
it a whole
just like,
paycheck.
yeah. I remember I went to the fancy cheese aisle, and I was just like, oh, got everything. I felt like such a man. I was like, I'm feeding my family here, and we're gonna have a house and like a picket fence, and we're gonna eat every
We're gonna
expensive
eat cheese.
And I think maybe I forget that check was. It was maybe like a $16,000 check or
That's a
something.
lot of money.
Going from having nothing to 16 grand.
Dude, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, and this was before all the recent inflation. So,
Yeah.
mind you, that check was gone in like a month or whatever. But because also you're like saddled with debt by the
Oh,
time
yeah.
you first. So it just goes instantly. But then I worked. So yeah, I worked with Frank for 5 years, and that was awesome. It was a dream come true. And being surrounded by, he has such an appreciation for art that really rubbed off on me. Like he cares more about his vision than anything. He doesn't let fear get in the way. Just like the truest form of art imaginable. Super inspiring to get to be a fly on the wall
Right.
for all those years watching those records get made. And I worked with him from Channel Orange to Blonde, and a lot of great people worked on those records, and I got to observe them. Like it was incredible.
Dude, and you've taken that experience and you're still doing great stuff. I mean, you're working with lots of wonderful artists still. I mean, are we allowed to say like Doja Cat and Niki and stuff like
Yeah.
that?
So what happened was after Blonde came out, which has been almost 10 years
I can't even
now.
believe that. I can't believe it's
I
been
know,
10 years.
right? So
Crazy.
I was just like, I just want to focus on mixing because I was getting to around, I was like 30 and I was really struggling to, I mean, I'm the kind of guy who's like, Frank calls me at 1 a.m. to drive to Malibu to start a session at 1 a.m. I'm freaking go. But that takes a toll on you. And eventually I was just like.
And your life. I mean, if you want to have a relationship. Or
Yeah.
anything
So I
like
was
that.
just like, I wasn't quite feeling healthy anymore. I'm super sensitive to certain foods and circadian rhythm and this and that. I was just like, I just want, and also I wanted to be, I never fell asleep in a session ever once until like right at the end. And I'm like, okay, I know if I'm falling asleep in these sessions, it's time for me to move on. So I was like, my dream was just to be a mixer. My dream was to have my own mix room at a classic recording studio. I'm like, I'm going to go after that dream
I always
now.
thought it would be so boring to just be a mixer, but you make it look so fun.
I love it.
I always thought tracking was the fun part.
Well, tracking is really fun if it's like a full band and like if the situation is right.
Right.
Tracking is incredible,
collaboration's
especially if you're the tracking engineer that's also guiding like the production aesthetic and everything.
Right.
Like that's super empowering, awesome. But I was obsessed with mixing, so I'm like, right when I finished Bond, I was like, okay, I will never take another engineering gig. I don't care what my money is. I'm like, I wrote out a constitution to myself. It was like,
Oh, I love this.
because there was a lot of things. My dream job stopped feeling like a dream job because I'd be up in the middle of the
You were
night. I
tired.
couldn't control my hours. I was tired. I was
Yeah.
burnt out. So I was like, I made a constitution to myself, like, these are all the things I'm not going to budge on. And they weren't like diva things. It was
Yeah.
like, hey, if I'm mixing your record, we're going to start at a healthy time.
Yep.
And obviously, I'll
That's
make a session.
self-preservation, dude. That's
So I made the list of self-preservation, and none of it was me being like respectful things. Like just respect me, and then. And if you don't, one of my things was I won't mix a record without a royalty point, this and that, all these things. I wrote it out, never compromised on it once ever
good
to
for
this
you.
day.
Good for you. Lesson to be learned for those of you
yeah.
who are listening to this. There's
But you
okay.
can't do that too early. You have to it's a
Don't get too
finesse.
full of yourself too early,
Yeah.
but also know your worth as time
Yeah.
goes by.
And I'm not asking anything that is like
Unusual.
unusual or like not that someone who respects me as a human wouldn't be okay with. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Right.
So if I'm like, yeah, I can't start a session anymore at 1 a.m., I'm just not going to budge on that. Any person that's like, oh, forget you then, it's like, okay, goodbye. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
that's not, it's not realistic anymore.
So things have worked out.
Yeah.
I mean, the journey is still the journey. It's still exciting. There's all
Yeah.
kinds of fun stuff up ahead.
Yeah.
And you've been working with some really cool stuff. You have your room here. It's so awesome. I love
Yeah.
having you here.
You brought me back here. It was
what is
amazing.
I'm
It was a
so
dream come
happy,
true.
dude. Thank you for wanting to come back. But what are some? Can you talk about some of the
Yeah.
things that you're doing now
So
to help give back in a way?
Right.
I
yeah,
think?
I think so too. Yeah. So I've spent I came from, I'm just going to do mixing now. That was 10 years ago. I went back to working out of my apartment to like fighting for every mix I could get. Had some more good luck because I worked with Frank, even though no one really knew who I was because he's so secretive. I got some great managers. Kirk and Cody from Bad Habit really helped me in my career. And, I got like Caliucci's album and like the Neighbourhood, and I started doing all the cool up and coming cool
I know,
kid
so
music.
cool.
There was a time on the Lorem playlist, which is like a big cool kid music playlist on Spotify, where I had like 15 songs on one Spotify playlist that I mixed. So I was
Wow.
doing all the cool kids stuff. And then
100 Gecs you did? I mean,
yeah, well, that came later, but like, so I was doing all this cool kid mix stuff, and then just over a decade, I just racked up an amazing catalog of like artistically forward-thinking music, and then like lately I've done Doja Cat and Joji and like the Niki album we just did. This artist named David, who's like a huge thing. I'm working on I can't
Cool
say
stuff.
what tons
I
of stuff
can't-
like that's not
yeah.
out yet that I can't
Yeah,
talk
yeah,
about.
yeah.
But if you're interested in what I worked on, I just crossed like 40 billion streams.
Oh my God, that's
of
fucking
music
so
that I've worked on.
congratulations.
Yeah, so that's cool. And
I don't know anything about these optics or these measurements.
It's
by
a
the way.
lot.
Yeah.
It's a lot. So
Yeah.
but yeah, you can look me up and find all the cool stuff from my Instagram.
Well, maybe you can get people to listen and watch the podcast, and we can get that
yeah,
increased.
I'm gonna link to the podcast. But I had
But what are you doing?
Mixer
now?
Brain. So in
Yes.
the last couple years, so unfortunately, the state of engineering has fallen off a cliff. It's
I won't
really,
disagree.
really, 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 really bad. And I'm not some old hat purist. I do a lot of hyper pop stuff that's like compressed and shredded and disgusting. Like that's not what I'm talking about. That's all aesthetic stuff.
Yeah.
Kids these days are learning from YouTube because that's the only source. The problem is
You said kids these days.
Kids these days. That was a Vic Mensa band too.
Yeah.
Kids these days are learning from YouTube. Producers, all the cool producers, super creative, make amazing music, but they're learning from YouTube. And the people that are posting content on YouTube and TikTok are also people that learned from YouTube, right? So the amount of like terrible groupthink that gets spiraled around.
I thought there was horrible crap coming out during COVID from people that were like
Yeah.
doing stuff in their houses and didn't
I
know what was
just
up.
opened up one of the biggest. So I don't do stems. I do DAW sessions, right? So I get to see what everybody's doing. I just opened up one of the biggest artists in the world, and her vocal chain had 12 plugins on it.
Yeah, we won't mention the name.
12 plugins. Okay, it had 3 Soothe 2s on it. This is a problem. So everybody has a disease which I call mixer brain. Okay, and mixer brain is like a brain disease where you get it just by entering music, right? And this is any state of mind other than being a little kid in their basement listening to music. So when I was little Jeff listening to my records, I was in a completely different mindset or headspace than Jeff as like computer engineering nerd, right? The mixer brain is computer analytical mind. It's very visually influenced. It's very much influenced
It's
on
not
insecurity.
focused on the music.
Yeah, so no.
Is that right?
Yeah, engineers and producers today don't actually listen. And I know that this is true because, again, I open up 200 DAW sessions a year of producers from all levels, from the biggest in the world down to the smallest. So I know what everybody's doing, and I know they're not actually listening. Everybody has been taught to apply a tool without ever actually listening to feeling emotion, feeling pocket, feeling aesthetic. So the analogy I use is that, a painter, right? A painter has a paintbrush, right? But painters don't get obsessed with the paintbrush. They get obsessed with the canvas, right?
Yes.
But engineers nowadays are
They're
obsessed with the
tool.
paintbrush.
They're obsessed with the tool.
You'll see TikToks of like people.
Remember, tools are just tools.
So there's been multiple times in my career where I've opened up a DAW session of the top singers in the world, okay? And they've had 12, 15 plugins on their voice, and I've bypassed every single one except for like effects like reverb and delay. Bypassed every single one, and then it was magical.
Then you hear the purity of the vocal and the performance.
And not purity as some like, oh, it's got to be clean like Steely Dan. No. All the emotion comes back.
Yeah.
And then you fall into the daydream because like actually they were an incredible artist. Now, someone might be like, well, not everybody's a good singer or whatever. It doesn't matter. The same death spiral of plug-in chain that everybody does nowadays that I see in every session, if you have a vocal, maybe it's not the best recording or whatever, that just makes it even worse, right? You have to find where is the emotion.
Yeah,
and
you
it's
don't want
not
to take
coming
away the
from,
soul of the performance.
Right. So when you have 5 compressors on a vocal, all the emotion goes away. And it seems like, I hear you laughing, like this is not some rare edge case. This is 99% of the sessions I open nowadays are so insane. They sound so bad that I was like, I am just cleaning up messes. I need to teach everybody to cure their mixer brain and get back to listening. And feeling in music again. They don't listen. And I know for a fact this is true because I open up 200 DAW sessions a year from all different producers. We're
not saying that there aren't those of you who do listen. We're just saying that especially in this modern pop world.
A couple people listen. It's like every single genre is infected with mixer brain.
Okay.
And we're not talking like 70% is messed up. No, it's like close to 98%. Wow. If I don't remember the last time I opened up a vocal that didn't have 8 plugins on it. And then you remove all the plugins and you hear that it's been processed already. Maybe a producer printed a stem and sent it to another producer. So I bypass everything, and the dry stem has loads of processing on it. So if you go on, New Music Friday or whatever, a huge chunk of the songs are huge artists. The vocals especially have no nuance or emotion in them. Everything's running into a wall, and everything's so over-processed to where the diction of the voice is ruined. So it's even really hard to fall into the lyrics too. So if you can't fall into the emotion of the vocal.
Yeah, what's the point?
So, and a lot of these songs end up doing okay, but imagine what it could have been if you could have fallen into the daydream of the song.
This has been my rant since before you came along, is that, you don't need much but a good microphone, a decent sounding room, and a competent performer.
Right.
Because, and I'm not saying I'm not an engineer, but I'm just saying as a layperson, I noticed the change over time from that, from okay, wait, I can't really understand them. I'm not.
Right.
Yeah. What happened to this?
So I remove all the plugins.
Yeah.
everybody loves it. And they're like, what did you do? I'm like, you already had it. You just didn't stop to listen. You know what I mean? Or they'll record a vocal and some of the words will be like the volume swings a little bit too much. So instead of like clip gaining the comps together, whatever, they'll just put 5 compressors on it to bring all the vocals to the same level. But then it introduces so many artifacts that it's like the personality goes away completely. So there is a little magic zone in there where sometimes a little processing can be beneficial. However, if there is no expression of emotion, I personally can't fall into the daydream.
I can't relate to the song.
So
fall into the daydream. I love that.
I was bitching about this for years, and also I felt like, what am I even doing? By the time these records get sent to me, some of them are so messed up. There's like not really much I can do.
Well, it's like surgery. We used to call it polishing a turd when I was younger.
If I can
not that they're turds, they're not turds, but we'd call it that. You'd be handed this thing, and you'd be like, well, why do I have to do this? It's like surgery.
The problem is if all the vocal production has I call them death spirals when there's 15 plugins on. And the reason people fall into these death spirals is because every plugin nowadays adds volume. And so it seems like it's getting better if you don't stop to like normalize the volume and realize the emotion's gone. So it falls off a cliff, and then people are like, I don't really know what happened. We'll send it to Jeff. And once you've gone that deep into the vocal production, when there's a billion plugins on it, sometimes you can't really dial it back because it'll set the song back 2 weeks, and you're not buying 2 weeks of my time to finish.
Right.
So, or everything will be committed in the DAW section. So there's just problems. So I'm like, I am one of the few people on earth. There's almost no one mixes off of DAW sessions like I do. So I'm one of the few people on earth that knows how bad it's gotten because I see everybody's session.
Right.
And it's 1,000 times worse than your wildest nightmares.
Wow.
It's a huge problem. So I'm
you're creating mixer brain.
Yeah, so everything that I learned from seeing where everybody's messing up, I developed a course called Mixer Brain to try to return everybody back to sanity and teach a different way that's more about art and emotion and to cure everybody's mixer brain. Listening and feeling and like...
When will Mixer Brain be available?
Mixer Brain is going to go on pre-sale. So today is what's the date? Should we even say?
It's the 20th.
Yeah,
it's 20th of January. This podcast won't come out for a couple months.
It'll be out. So if you're seeing this, it's out.
Yeah.
So it's going to be, I'll be done with it in like 3 weeks. Pre-sales are going to go on sale this week.
Awesome.
Which is irrelevant to people watching because now it's out. So you missed the opportunity to get it for way cheaper.
It's okay.
But it's like 15 hours of content. It's all principle based.
Fun.
Yeah, it's all principle based. It's silly. But
cool.
No one knows the principles. They just know about plugins. So I'm teaching all the principles that have made me successful.
Do you know how many really talented old guard engineers are going to be like, yes?
Yeah, they're going to be...
They're going to be like, finally, someone in the younger generation who actually was listening.
Yeah.
And
there's going to be a lot of people that have been doing this for like 5, 10 years that are going to be resistant to this paradigm shift because what it means, it's like when all the people that were like taekwondo black belts and then like the wrestlers came along and just choked them all out and they realized like everything they learned was a lie. But like if you've spent the last 5 years studying audio engineering off of YouTube and TikTok, almost everything that you've been taught is wrong. So it's going to be time to go back to the drawing board. But the good news is that
you still have these?
Yeah, the good news is the way that I'm teaching this principle-based way is actually way easy, so much easier than what you were doing before.
Wow. And
so much more fun. And you're going to unlock so much emotion. So it's going to be super easy to convert back to like sanity. And I don't think there'll be a single person that starts at the beginning of the course, makes it to the end, and isn't like
isn't going to get it. Going to be this
transformative.
Amazing.
And like the reason why I've been super successful is that for whatever reason, I never fell into a lot of the audio people. It's a religion. There's a lot of religion in audio. You know, people that you know the type.
Well, people are on forums and they cast their opinion about as if they are the ultimate. And the truth of it is, this is a creative job.
Right.
I mean, if you don't stumble, if there aren't happy accidents, if you aren't humble about it, then you don't really serve the art, in my opinion. And you're not really giving the artist their fair shake.
Yeah.
You know?
And a lot of your heroes have mixer brain real bad. So
possible.
It is very possible, and it's
Probably not mine, though, because I only like the good people.
Well, here's the thing. You're like the early
My
generation.
generation's
The
different.
early generation was so limited by the lack of tools that compared to what we have
They
nowadays.
had to freaking
all
use
they
their
had
ears.
was art, right? So
Yeah.
mixing. I mix on a console.
Yep.
And so like for example, people will be like Chris Lord out CLA or whatever. They'll see him like super ramming a vocal through a compressor, right? It's like, but hold on, let me finish before you think.
I
about
know
it.
you're not going to
So-
say anything bad. I know you know.
yeah.
Respect Chris.
So, and then they'll be like, and then maybe he'll use a second compressor in certain situations. Okay, cool. Now, a student will see that and they'll take that, and then they'll be like, oh, and then this other thing I saw.
yeah, they just can't stop. It's like a disease.
So let me finish. So CLA stops there.
Mix
He
your
stopped
brain's a
there.
disease.
Yes. So that's great. It sounds great. And then a student will take, oh, but from this engineer I learned, then you could put a multi-band compressor here and then another de-esser. And then this engineer, I learned from here, oh, and then you could put a Soothe 2 on and this. And then they combine that all together. And what you have is like, you miss the point
Bad
of
stew.
every single thing. And even CLA's like, CLA, the guy will ram a vocal through 1176, and it was like telling everybody needs to stop compressing so much. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's not that, but you know, at the end of the day, it's very often that you'll get a vocal that you can put 0 things on. There's a spoiler alert. There's a chapter in my course that I show. It's the Great Nothing Challenge, and I do a mix using nothing.
Yeah.
And it comes out better than like what you're used to hearing because like it's just you don't need anything.
Dude, in this building, we're so lucky, and people work here in every new producers, new engineers, different kinds of artists, pop artists, hip hop, whatever it is. But most of the people who come through here, at least who have or experienced, I'm so lucky because there's like Dave Way, who's a genius, or Dave Reitzes, or Jim Scott, or Ross Hogarth, JJ Blair, all these guys. These are people who truly care the same way you do,
Yeah.
and the same things that you're saying, like, look, or the common phrase, if it isn't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, so those are all
Like, yeah.
classically trained engineers.
Yeah.
They don't need this course. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? I think it'll be beneficial for everybody.
Yeah.
But I definitely
Good
don't
to
want
get back to the soul of it.
Yeah, but everybody gets mixer brain, including me. I've had the worst case of it. So all those names you listed,
Yeah.
they will be the first to admit, and many times in their life, they've also had mixer
Probably,
brain.
yeah.
That's the journey to. There's a reason Ryan Hewitt has a copy of the Tao Te Ching sitting on the
Yeah,
console when
yeah,
he's
yeah.
mixing. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That's to avoid mixer brain and be in flow
Yeah,
state. You know what I
yeah.
mean? So every great
I like
has.
fall into the daydream.
Yeah, if you
I'm gonna
if you
use
are
that.
like if you don't consciously fight against mixer brain, you probably don't call it that. But all the greats have at one point or another had to learn to
Overcompressed or-
overcome
yeah.
mixer brain,
Yeah.
and it can take the shape of just walking in and being scared to let your clients down. That's mixer brain, right? If you have insecurity, your art's gonna suffer dramatically. If you're scared that, I remember my first 1,000 mix attempts, I was like, not 1,000, but like you know what I mean. Like I was so scared that if I did one mix, every A&R in Hollywood would find out and I would be blacklisted. You know what I mean? I literally would think like that, which is like, first of all, not true. They don't have enough organization
they're
to
not
remember
paying
their
it- yeah,
freaking
yeah, it's
first
not
name.
organized enough,
But these
yeah.
are like things I would tell myself. So I would walk into like trying to mix a skunk. And I could never get into the flow state because I would be like, oh, would Pitchfork music like not like this reverb that I'm using? Like stupid mixer brain thoughts like that. And if I don't constantly
Remember,
work
they're
on
hiring you. That's the other thing you got to remember. They're hiring you and trusting you with their art.
Yes.
The artist is trusting you with their art. We are all subordinate to the artist and the art. That's
Yeah.
period. That's it.
Yeah.
Without them, there is no job. There
Yeah.
is no mixer. There is no engineer.
I used to be so scared.
But also, without the engineer, recording engineer, mixer, etc., your music would never be captured and your music would never go out there into the world. So it's a symbiosis and it's a deep, deep trust. And I think we might wrap up
Wrap it
on
up.
this note, which is just thank you for giving a shit about your craft. Thank you for caring enough about it to do this.
Thank you for giving me
so awesome.
a career.
Oh, but yeah, it was easy.
You're going to get a split of the profits for sure. You're going to get some nice presents.
Oh, that
If
sounds
this
awesome.
thing's successful,
Awesome. I'm going to retire soon, so I'm going to hold him to this
Yeah, I
Mixer
got
Brain
you.
thing.
Yeah.
1% of Mixer Brain is my retirement fund.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to say thank you for taking the time because I know that you're busy. And I just love it because I hope people will listen and people will hear this and they'll go, I'm that kid.
yeah.
I'm that kind of nerdy kid and I love this and I want to figure out how to do it. And he did it and I could do it too.
I mean, I made the course for me primarily, and since making it, honestly, it's leveled me up so much better because I've distilled everything into, when I get lost, here's a template that I can follow that I know works perfectly for me.
Super entertaining too, by the way. I don't want to give it away.
Yeah, no spoilers, but also
So awesome.
Since I made this for me, the whole thing is ridiculous. So we get real silly. And everybody's so try-hard. That's another mixer brain. Engineers are so try-hard about everything.
Yeah.
It's like, can we all calm down? And like, again, it's just music. Like,
Relax.
yeah, it's 1176 is literally just a piece of metal with some weird circuitry and 2 knobs on it, or 4
was
knobs.
originally
with some
created in
buttons
this
and-
building by the infamous and wonderful Bill Putnam. So thank you, Bill. Thank you, Bill, for your genius.
Yeah. But
Yeah,
again,
Bill-
it's just
Bill
a box.
Bill couldn't overthink it. He didn't have a lot to do. I mean, those guys were flying by the seat of their pants. They had like broadcast consoles that they had to modify to create to recording.
Yeah.
They were like,
That's cool.
yeah, like Tom Dowd.
Yeah.
Dude, we stand on the shoulders of giants.
Yes.
Is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
So, but Jeff is for hire. And, just remember that mixers, producers, engineers, session players, everyone is working only if you hire them. So if you like
True.
something that someone did, reach out. He may not have the time, might have the time, might like it. Take a chance. If you've got the money, you're an artist, and you would like to have someone Jeff mix your stuff, reach out.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
JeffEllisWorldwide.com.
Yeah, reach out.
Mixerbrain.com.
Yeah.
Jeff Ellis Worldwide on Instagram.
EastWestStudios.com.
East West Studios is where my studio is. So if you're a fan of this building, if we
Don't
decide
just
to
show
work
up,
together,
though. Don't just show up.
yeah, don't do that. It's just never.
Never good.
Yeah.
But anyway, yes, none of these people work unless you hire them. Thank you so much for being here. That's Trade Secrets, and you're Jeff Ellis, and he's rad.
Thank you, friends.
Yeah. Awesome.
Bye, Mixer Brain.